Now, the World Bank has scored Nigeria pretty high with the current Ease of Doing Business Index. Is the Nigerian economy truly open and ready for business? All through the week, we've been talking to various entrepreneurs seeking their views on the scorecard against daily realities. Perhaps there is still one critical sector that can bear witness to this claim. This sector is critical because they cater to foreigners and Nigerians almost at the same time. They are the window to our world and the new world too. They should know if it has become easy doing business around here. We're talking about tourism, especially from the travel and tours perspective. We're glad to have the Chief Executive Officer of flyboku.com with us tonight, Mr. Abiola Lawal, also known as Mr. Boku. Many thanks for your time, Biola, for joining me on Business Tonight.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Exactly. Yes, this one sector that many Nigerians, I do know, always want to travel. Sure. And with this latest ranking, we've been talking to different entrepreneurs of different businesses all through the week. And we want to know from your perspective, is it really easy to do business in Nigeria?
That's a $1 million question. Thank you for having me. Is it easy to do business in Nigeria? I think it's a relative question. I would say it is easier than last year and maybe the last couple of years. I don't think in absolute terms it is easy to do business in Nigeria because the challenges are still there. Flyboku.com focus is how to get people moving, right? The idea is how do we make sure that we can get people to inbound or outbound Nigeria? Whether you're talking about ticketing or visa or hotels, we try to aggregate all that process together to make it easier for getting people in and out of the country. But overall, I would say it is easier. Nigeria just moved about 24 points in the Ease of Doing Business Index. I must say it is very commendable. I think we must. It is very easy to complain in this country. So when we get some positive news, I think it's important to also celebrate it.
All right, and it helps us to move on.
Yeah, so we've moved 24 points to, I believe, 145.
All right, let me ask you, because we spoke earlier, and of course, this is a passion. You were into, it's a different form of thing from your career, correct. You know. Yeah, but when did you start this business? For how long is it now?
Very good question. You know, I have to take you a little bit back. You know, I spent about 25 years in the United States, and my first job when I landed in the States was working for an airline. I worked for a company called SkyWest Airlines in California, United States. And it wasn't very pretty. I started loading bags on aircraft and then eventually moved to ticketing. So I learned everything in aviation and tourism for over 5 years before going to business school. And I found it fascinating. I developed a passion for it. Then when I went to grad school to get an MBA, I came out of that process. I mostly worked for big corporations, Disney, Pepsi, Nike, software companies. So I spent the next 10 years, oil and gas, a lot of oil and gas, spent the next 15 years in those space. So when I decided to start a business, I decided to reconnect with my passion. And so aviation and tourism.
And aviation is expensive to run, I must say. Is it a profitable one for you?
It's a good question. Aviation, because it is so fundamental to how a country runs, you know, the first answer is relatively, I think it's okay. It goes back to your question about ease of doing business. When you have a situation where it is difficult to do business, then that means your cost of production, your cost of service, everything from generating power to other expenses that goes with that becomes very difficult. Overall, I think we're doing okay. The brand is doing very well. Flyboku.com, I think we have a lot of
Maybe you are the first actually going with this latest World Bank Ease of Doing Business in Nigeria and saying, okay, it is okay, because I know it was premised, this index was premised on about 3 indicators. Correct. Access to credit. Correct. Registering your business. Correct. Tax.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say that. So accessing credit, was it so easy for you, accessing credit while you started?
It's a very good question. To be honest, out of the whole process, in describing the movement, the improved movement for ease of doing business in Nigeria, the one area where I challenge is that issue of access to credit. The fact of the matter is it's still extremely difficult to get access to credit in Nigeria. I am also a very big volunteer and participant with the Nigerian Economic Summit Group. And one of the policy commission there is the medium and small enterprises.
Okay.
I used to be I'm one of the key anchors in that space. And what I hear consistently from a lot of the small, medium enterprises that it is too difficult to get credit. You know, when you have the government essentially borrowing at about 15, 17%, the minimum then for a small business to lend is to access capital is over 25%. So it's extremely difficult on the debt side. On the equity side, it's very difficult because how do you get equity? It's either you're using some kind of venture capital or private equity in an environment where the cost of debt is very high. The truth is the cost of equity is even higher. So if you're getting 25% or so for debt, for you to get access to credit on the equity side, you have to think in 30, 40, 50%. So I must say that it's been my experience and most entrepreneurs' experience that the cost of getting access to capital is extremely high.
Well, I do not know if you were at the last NESG, but many banks attested to that. They are not motivated to give credit to small businesses. But one point that was raised is that SMEs must put the right ideas, brand the right ideas before you get to those banks. Do you think SMEs have the right ideas, branded, well branded, on the table for them to be able to get that credit?
Excellent question. I don't think ideas is a problem. I think if you look, today I was at a session in VI with a lot of young people where it's a lot about education and technology and ideas, and it was a fantastic environment. So I believe the Nigerians have amazing ideas, right? So it's about how do we execute.
Okay.
If you go to different environments, whether you're talking about the West, US, UK, and all that, what makes the Facebook of the world happen is because they're enabling environment. There are private equity firms, there are venture capital that will say, look, I'm going to give you $5 million, I'm going to give you $2 million to go and start. It's a risk capital. What's missing in this environment, oftentimes, SMEs will have an idea, but the gap is huge in terms of being able to finance those ideas. So oftentimes, you need what we call patient capital. That is capital that's more than 1 year, 5-year, 10-year capital. And that's not very easy to find in this environment because oftentimes the banks want their money now. They need to secure it. Many times they ask you, give me a security, bring me a house in Banana Island or Lekki, whatever. So most entrepreneurs are squeezed. But that's the bad news. The good news is I think there's some light we can see ahead. Right. So there's a Development Bank of Nigeria that was just set up, for example, from the Ministry of Finance. And the charter is to be able to lend to SMEs in single digits, 9% or whatever. I am one of the organizers of Nigerian Economic Summit. Okay. And so we actually had a session on ease of doing business. And we saw some tremendous ideas on how to do that. So I'm very encouraged. Look, think about it. There's about 37, 38 million SMEs in Nigeria. And one of the biggest problems we have in this country is unemployment, particularly for our young people. So imagine if about 37, 40 million SMEs hires 1 or 2 people. If you can incentivize them, that clears the log of unemployment. Just 2 each. That's about 80, maybe 100 million people you can employ. That, I believe, is the way to go. All
right. Hopefully, with this latest ranking, of course, it boosts confidence in the economy again. Hopefully, we'll get better later. And we must leave it at that. Mr. Abiola Lawal, the Chief Executive Officer, flyboku.com.
And we always say, Mr. Boku will take you there. If you're already there, Boku will bring you back.
Thank you very much, Abiola Lawal.
Pleasure.